Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's Charity Village webinar. We will get started in just a moment. We just want to make sure that everyone has a chance to join us before we start the session. We are excited to share that we have people tuning in from across the country today, which is excellent. It's so nice to have all of you here. And with that, we will go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone, to today's Charity Village webinar. My name is Mercedes, and I'm the Marketing and Communications Manager with Charity Village. As we are gathering here on a virtual platform, it is important to acknowledge that each of us is joining this webinar from the ancestral or unceded lands of the Inuit, Métis, and First Nation people. I'd like to acknowledge I'm speaking to you from the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Anishinaabe, which includes the Ojibwe of Fort William First Nation. Please join us in a moment of reflection as we recognize the Indigenous peoples as the stewards of this land. Let's acknowledge the mistakes and harm in our history and the ongoing injustice, and contemplate tangible actions each of us can take to move forward in a spirit of truth, reconciliation, and collaboration. For those who may be joining a Charity Village webinar for the first time, Charity Village is Canada's largest online job board for the nonprofit sector. In addition to our online job board, organizations can also post volunteer positions. So if you're looking for work or to recruit talent in the sector, Charity Village is a great place to start. We also have a ton of excellent resources for nonprofit professionals, including online courses, articles, fundraising tools, and free webinars like the one we are presenting today. Before we start today's webinar, I would like to quickly run through some housekeeping items. You may have noticed when you joined the webinar that you were automatically put on mute. Since we have hundreds of participants in today's session, it is important for us to minimize the amount of background noise so that everyone can clearly hear the presentation. But you can still ask questions and make comments using the question box at the bottom of the Zoom control panel. Look for that at the bottom of your screen. You can also email your questions to webinars@charityvillage.com. We will be taking questions at the end of the webinar, so please submit your questions as you think of them, and we will do our best to get to as many as possible. If you happen to encounter any technical issues with the webinar, please let us know in the question box or by sending us an email. We will do our best to get any technical difficulties resolved as quickly as possible. But in a worst case scenario, please remember that we are recording today's webinar, and we will send you the full recording by email tomorrow. So if you get called away or disconnected, you will still be able to view the full presentation. Now I would like to welcome our presenters for today, Shannon Beliveau and Daryl Hatton from ConnectionPoint. Welcome.
Mercedes, thanks for having us. Hey, welcome to everybody. I'm really looking forward to this talk, and we'll get right in, get going with it. So first off, I'm going to take off my video just a little bit because I'm presenting from a dual screen architecture to try and make sure we have the best quality of both the sharing and the audio and video for us. And I'd just like to kind of acknowledge that ConnectionPoint, which is our company, is based on the ancestral and unceded territory of the Tsleil-Waututh, Squamish, and Musqueam nations. And so we're also just adding into our feelings about support for reconciliation in Canada. One of the things that wanted to acknowledge is that, give a shout out to Charity Village here. We've been partners with Charity Village for a while, but they've been in the industry for 30 years and really supporting the nonprofit industry in Canada with free resources and jobs and training and all sorts of help. And part of that help is offering up the Charity Village crowdfunding platform for the community in Canada for free. So this is a very, very high performance, high power platform that comes from our company, ConnectionPoint, and is available to you as part of their commitment to helping with this industry. So ConnectionPoint is a world leader in collaborative commerce. Our platform helps causes and corporations work together with consumers to fund impactful projects. We're best known for things like our brands Fundraiser and Crowdfunder, which focus on personal professional charity and on entrepreneurial and creative industries funding. But we also offer it to others in a fully white label supported environment like we have with Charity Village. So there's some real advantages for you in working with the Charity Village version of our platform in terms of the support you get and the brand recognition that's there and others. So we're just here in support for doing the this type of fundraising in Canada and this type of collaboration with Charity Village. Now, I'm founder and CEO. Shannon is our VP of Client Success, and we work with our clients very closely in helping coach not only on kind of how to use the tools, but on your crowdfunding strategy. This is a free resource available to you, and so we need to really kind of emphasize that. We don't have anything to sell you here today. Our goals are to help you see the platform, see what's possible, see what some of your peers are doing, talk about the issues around tariffs, and what we can do about it. So without kind of further, I mean, really, this is the issue, is that the tariffs are impacting us and are predicted to impact us a lot, and we want to have a good strategy for how to deal with it. So our agenda for today, we're going to go through kind of a brief state of the market, what's going on in the market around the tariffs, and what does that do to impact donors and the general populace. We're then going to talk about a donor acquisition and retention strategy that can help work us through downturns in the market, tariffs being one of them. And out of that, we're going to discuss how it breaks into a short-term and a long-term strategy for working with these donors and how to keep them going. We're going to dive into more detail on something called the crowdfunding flywheel and how does that work to engage them. One important step of that flywheel has a step where we need to do some impact storytelling. And because that's one of the harder areas for people to kind of get their heads around in crowdfunding, we go into this in a little bit more depth to give you some idea of how to tell the story in a crowdfunding world. We highlight a point of retention that you must do if you want to keep those donors. And then we thought we'd run into some case studies about what some of your peers are doing in Canada and how they're using the various techniques available in the Charity Village crowdfunding platform to help do the things that we're talking about, to show you how they're working, and just to give it, kind of a show me flavor. Finally, we'll have a chance to answer your questions and, as you said, put them into the Q&A box, and we can get onto them along the way. So the state of the market. The impact of the tariffs is predicted to have a big impact on the Canadian market, but it's already showing to be true. One of the other crowdfunding platforms, Zephy, did a survey of their donors, and they published it in the Chronicle of Philanthropy a few months ago. And they showed that when the tariffs were announced, immediately digital donors, it's important here to emphasize digital donors, dropped off dramatically in the immediate period afterwards. We're fortunate we didn't see this happening in the same effect on our platforms. It was much smaller impact, but it is out there then as showing in the data already. And the reason for this is fairly easy to understand. If we think about it, creates employment uncertainty for a lot of people. They don't know whether or not they're going to have a job that's impacted by the tariffs. Certainly with all the news around it, it adds to that uncertainty. And then there's the real news of people losing their jobs in the steel industry or in other industries, perhaps travel, entertainment. And that affects us or our friends and neighbors or family members. So we are feeling that anxiety about it. And then on top of that, it actually has some physical things happening where costs of goods are rising. Even with the Buy Canadian boycott, which I hope everyone is doing against American goods, and particularly American vegetables, it creates some additional costs for us. And this leads to inflation. So with all of this, we end up as donors with lower discretionary income. And donations are discretionary action. And so when we don't have as much discretionary income, we're reluctant to spend it unless we have high value. So the predicted result of all these trends is that we'll see a reduction in frequency and size of donations over the course of the year. Some of these changes haven't really impacted the economy yet for reasons such as there was hoarding or initial buildup of inventories that were not affected by the tariff pressure that are now exhausting. And so prices are naturally going to start to rise where they have not risen so far. The good news is that Canadians are resilient, our donors are resilient, and I'm seeing some resilience. I was in a Home Depot, or not a Home Depot, IKEA a little while ago, and you tell me there's a recession on, you can barely move in the place. It was so full of people shopping. So there's some good news to that. So what we'd like to do at this point is do a bit of a survey and see what your expectations are for the market for the rest of the year. We're focused on digital fundraising. So what are your expectations for digital fundraising? Because Major Gifts is going to have a different life than digital in this world. Do you think you're going to raise a lot less money, a little less money, about the same, little more, or a lot more? If you could, please put your results in and then we'll report back. Is this where you do the do? Okay, anyway, here we go. So our polls come back, and that's fantastic. So my personal view is we're going to raise a little less. That if we put in the right efforts, we can minimize the impact of these tariffs, and we can use it as an opportunity to build better relationships with our donors. So, big chunk of people here, over half, are saying a little less or about the same or a little more. So right in the range. Some folks have got a lot more going. I'd love to hear what you're doing about it because that's a great result going on. And for those that are a lot less, if you're concerned about that, that's a place where we can really help with the strategies on how to maybe mitigate some of that and not have it impact you as badly. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, onward slide. So a key to this is in any downturn, but particularly an economic one, we really have to get back to basics around donor acquisition and retention strategy. And when we're talking about donor acquisition, we have to take into account the current scenario that's going on for the donor and what's happening there. If it's boom times, we can get a little bit more aggressive in what we're asking, for how much we're asking, for how often we're asking. But when we're in lean times, we need to get their attention because, for one thing, all the news is about all the bad stuff going on in the economy or in politics. And so, in order to get their attention, we can't be boring. This can't be the same old strategy over and over again. We need to have a unique take on it. We need to get them to do a, hey, wait, what? When they're looking at your stuff so that we break the cycle of doom scrolling by you or just ignoring the messages because they're looking for very specific things, typically bad news because that's what we're programmed to look for. So in doing our campaigns, we need to really keep the message simple, especially in the digital realm. Donors don't have a lot of time to look at content. They're not willing to give you a lot of time to look at content. So we have to be very succinct. And one of the best ways to keep it succinct is to keep the message simple. In this time frame, what we're looking to do is acquire more donors, not necessarily bigger donors, any kind of donor, even a $5, a $2, a $10 donor, because we're wanting to try and get them engaged with us. So the key to a strategy at this point is to keep the ask affordable, almost trivial at the point. The effort is more to get them to make the decision to donate to you, not for maximizing the amount you're going to get out of this gift, because we're using the assumption this is not the only gift we're going to get them. Quite the opposite. We're going to trust that we can do more with retention and therefore build a longer term relationship with more value. So the effort here is to minimize the ask, not maximize it. We want to minimize the amount we're asking for to allow more people to hit the affordability zone, the place where they can really feel like that's no big deal. It's a cup of coffee. Sure, I'll give you a cup of coffee. What are you going to do with it? Tell me about that. Because with this, what we're looking to do is build trust and transparency in the way we operate, to communicate back to them what even small amounts of money can do to move the needle, and sharing that information with them so that they're more willing to look at us and go, they did what they said they were going to do. I'll give them a little more and see what happens. And one of the best ways in the stories when it's quick and dirty like this is to use some short testimonials about people experiencing what it's like to donate to your cause and the results that it generates. But a key thing in asking for this, especially when we're doing digital or social fundraising, is that once they've made that decision to give, and even if they haven't, we want to ask them for referrals to others. This is a low cost ask. What we're saying is, hey, can you recommend others them or share this out to other people that you think may want to know about it? And if we give them some content that makes it easy for them to share, then they don't have to think about it too much. They can just go quickly, hit a share button, and now it's out to their network. And you've reached a lot more people in your fundraising efforts. So, in the same context, the keys to retaining donors that come at you like this is it's incredibly important, more than ever before, because we haven't got a big gift. We can't, go, okay, that's all we're going to get from them, move on. It's not a one and done kind of scenario. We really want to use this as a foundation to build a relationship with them. So to do that, we have to communicate the impact of what even that small amount of money did, but in general, what the organization does. And when we're doing impact communications, it's not about like, it's very much about the individual. In this, in the kind of, especially with Gen Z donors and younger donors, they want to know how it matters or what they did. So, we jokingly say it's all about them, but it is. For most donors, it's all about them. What did they do that made the difference here? So we want to individualize the way they participate. And when we're communicating back, and so on that topic, there's some features in the platform called wishes that really can help you understand what they're doing to help you. And then we want to personalize the results. When it comes back, as much as possible, we want to tell them what their gift did, not what the aggregate gifts did, although we can do that. But we want to really focus on trying to make sure they understand what they did. And when we help them understand that, it's important that we help them visualize it, not intellectualize it. So if they can see a result, or in their mind, you can build an image of the result that's being generated with their money, they're way more likely to give you another gift in the future because it triggers a different kind of memory in what they do. And they will remember the visual of it more than we remember the intellectual part of it. For all the thinkers in the crowd, that can sometimes feel offensive, but it's just kind of the way some biology works in what we do. So a key thing is you've got to follow up. It's not good enough to just get a gift and say thank you and move on. Following up with especially Gen Z donors is about giving them short and sweet updates. These aren't long reports about what the work was done, really professionally polished. This is short, snackable content. A paragraph or two paragraphs or a picture and a tagline about what the results have been. And giving it to them gives them an opportunity to share that with others. And that's how, again, you get more social media referrals. But a lot of folks say, hey, am I talking to them too often? And surveys have said they're asking for a lot more. They just don't want to be hit with an appeal all the time. They want to know what's going on, though. And it's okay to over communicate. And by over communicate, while running a campaign, it can be a daily or a couple of times a week communication. And over the course of the year, it's certainly every few weeks at minimum in order to communicate with them. Okay, kind of flogged that one a lot, but excuse me. So, um, short-term strategy versus long-term strategy. Our short-term strategy is to acquire supporters. Now, notice I didn't say acquire donors. If they're donors, great, but what we're really trying to do is build supporters here. And one of the best ways to do that is leverage their curiosity about what's different about you. You can act a little different than what they might expect a nonprofit to act like. And that can get them some interest in working with you. Again, we talked about this already by minimizing the gift size to focus on maximizing the conversion, the number of people that will reach your campaign, your crowdfunding campaign. The more we can get to convert into a supporter, whether they give a gift or just agree to sign up for your newsletter or to follow the campaign, the better. Because we're really just starting a relationship with them. This is, kind of, it's a little bit the dating metaphor that if, we don't want to be asking for you to move in with us the first time we go on a date with you. It's the same kind of thing. We want to just start with having some fun together, talk about what's going on, and agree to keep talking. That callback after the date's so important. So again, we want to ask the supporters to share because this is how we can expand the market through the available reach of your campaign through social media. And the reason is that the supporters that come to you like this, when they share, their friends are a highly relevant target audience for you. They likely have shared values, they have a shared demographic, and they're interested in what their friends do. So when you can get your supporters to share, they're more likely to give than a more general populace. To give you some examples of what the kind of projects that you can do in the summertime that are short, sweet type projects, we made a web page for it, or a blog post for it. And so when you get the deck, that is a link to that resource and availability. Okay, the long-term strategy here is we want to take those supporters and cultivate them into advocates. And the funny thing about cultivating them into advocates is a donation can be frequently become a side effect of them working with you. It's not the primary reason they work with you. So our goal in the long term is to strengthen the relationship we had, or we acquired with these supporters that came in. And one of the ways to do that, and I've harped on it before, is sharing the personalized results of what they're doing. And this is where your crowdfunding platform can really help you, because it can help you know what the result was and be able to communicate back to them, and especially subsets of the group of donors. You got segments of the group of donors. You can help share more personalized communications to them. It's really important to use inclusive language. It's them acting through you that's creating these results. We tend to like to say we are doing this, and that's great, but we need to make that universal, we, inclusive, because they want to be part of your shared mission. They want to make a good impact on the world. That's one of the reasons why they're doing it. Especially, you heard me say it a few times, but Gen Z donors are really, they want to be part of it. They don't just want to pay for it. That feels sometimes icky. So we want them to be part of our journey. We want them to join us in this mission. And the goal here is to increase their engagement over time, where they're working with us, accepting a communication from us, working on sharing it with us more often, and eventually maybe donating on a repeated or recurring basis. And I highlight the difference between repeated and recurring, because recurring is a long-term commitment. Repeated is, if given an opportunity to give, I give, and then you give me another opportunity and I give again. It's a different level of commitment, and that matters to Gen Z. And then we're going to talk about using the crowdfunding flywheel to increase this engagement. All right, onwards. One, for everyone, you may hear the gravel in my voice. I lost my voice last night, so looking forward to doing this morning was a little bit scary. So this is a fundraising flywheel, and I hope that you can take some time when we're going through this to try and suss out what's the difference between a regular funding flywheel. Those are hard words to say. So in the funding flywheel, let's start at the engage level. And with engaging in crowdfunding, what it is about, we want to create a crowdfunding campaign, and it contains a story. And the story is there to inspire an emotional response. So we want them to have an understanding what the problem is and emotionally feel that this is important. And then from that emotion, we want to convert it into an action. We want to inspire them to take an action. So the next step of this is to monetize. Now, monetize isn't about just taking a payment, although that's part of it. Monetize is about really helping them understand the impact that they're going to make by the way they make their payment. And I talked a little bit more about wishes before, and we're going to show you some examples of how wishes can help you at the monetization phase to help the donor be motivated to give more and understand more about what they're giving. Now, I did a TED Talk on philanthropy as entertainment, and one of the key parts that is really important in crowdfunding is the next step. Right after they've made their gift, our biology rewards us and floods us with some feel-good hormones, serotonin, oxytocin, dopamine, and endorphins. And that's where we get this warm, fuzzy feeling after we've donated. Our body's actually rewarding us because it was a great evolutionary behavior for protecting us as a tribe. A weaker animal in the ecosystem was able to work together because of these feelings of taking care of each other. And so at that point, they've already given a gift. immediately what we want to do is while they're in that feel-good state, we want to get them to amplify the effect of that. And that's where at that point we give them shareable content. We want and ask them to share out to their community, to fund, to help reach other people that have a like mind. Okay, the next step of this, a period of time goes by. You've made a contribution and a little bit goes by, sometimes weeks, hopefully not much longer than that. And we need to do a retained communication. And a retained communication is this is where a lot of causes struggle, is that they don't get back to them in a timely fashion to say to the donor what your gift did. Because when you communicate that back to them, not with an ask, not with a, hey, could you give us another one? Just thanks for doing this. This is the kind of impact that you just made. They are more willing to open the next communication that comes from you because it's not just another ask. So that later on, when you've got a new thing happening with your campaign, or maybe you're just pushing to the end of the campaign, or you've started something new, you can communicate with them and rally them to say, hey, we had such a great job last time. We're looking to see if we can get some help telling other people about the next project we have. And that rallying phase, this is part of what the crowdfunding platform can help you with, is send out segmented messaging out to the group of donors who are more likely to be able to share that. And the purpose of those messages is to attract people to your campaign. And there's other ways you can go about doing this. You can do it with ads, very expensive, very impractical for a lot of nonprofits. You can take a kind of slow boat where they get email addresses and things like that from your website, or you can borrow a crowd. And borrowing a crowd where you're getting an influencer or others to help you with the distribution of your campaign message. Many ways we're borrowing the network of crowd around our donors, our advocates, and that's how we're engaging and attracting new donors. And so from that attract phase, hopefully those new donors come in at the engaged level and they follow through. And if we've done a good job of our retain and rally communications, our existing donors may give again in a repeated form, not necessarily a recurring form. And the donation, this flywheel spins faster and faster and faster. So I'm hoping you can see that what the difference here is from a traditional kind of donor acquisition flywheel is the level of engagement that we expect from the donors and supporters. That we're counting on them to actually do some things in each step of this. It's not just about informing them, giving them a report, giving a thank you, giving them a tax receipt. We're asking for them to actively advocate for us. Okay, so that engaged step is really, really important. And it's one of the areas that our customers struggle a lot with is how do I tell the story of all the great work we're doing as a cause to somebody in a very short period of time? In the entrepreneurial world, we call this an elevator pitch. The idea is that when you get in an elevator, you got to the ride to the top 40 floors or whatever to tell the whole story of your cause to a potential investor with the point of getting off the elevator, they're going, let's continue the discussion. I want to talk about giving you money. With the 7 steps of impact storytelling is very similar kind of model. And there's some psychological tricks that come into play in here to help move your story along. We look at almost any cause and we can find a way to fit the story of what you do into these 7 steps. So far, I haven't found anybody who we haven't been able to it. So I'm up for the challenge. If you think we can't tell the story of your cause in 7 steps, bring it on. I'd love to see it because, we're trying to learn here too. But the key thing that we're trying to do is to really make it quick and easy for a Gen Z or a digital donor who will not give you very much time to help them understand the cause. No one reads much anymore. So if we have to give them a short, snackable little piece of ideas in order to get this to work, we start with something called the nod. And the nod is basically say something that they're going to agree with. And you're going, why do that? Well, as soon as they agree with you, they already have crossed a mental barrier to go, oh, I like something about what they said. They're more receptive to the next thing you say. And so it can just be a one-line statement. Most of these are 1, 2, or three sentences. Then you explain the problem that you're trying to solve. The problem isn't lack of money. The problem is that there's something going on in the world and you want to help solve it. So you describe that very, very quickly, a couple of steps. We're leaving out tons of details. That's okay. Then you talk about the solution. The solution is what your organization does to make the problem less impactful or make it go away. And you can talk in there about the vision about what you want the world to look like. This is the future version of the world. Now we start to talk money. We talk about the gap. And the gap is the difference between the current reality and the reality we want to see happen, broken down into units of impact, small amounts of money that'll move that needle along a little bit. And we want to, explain to them that they need, if they give you a little bit of money, this is what they can do with just that amount to make this slightly better. Because what we're trying to do is show them how they can be the hero of the story. With their small contribution, we can make an incremental change in solving the problem. And so it's really about, again, it's all about them, helping them understand where they fit in this picture. And then to cement this, what we want to do is make them a promise. And the promise is typically, it's a quid pro quo. You're wanting to tell them something that, to promise them that they'll do something, that you'll do something for them. And the least expensive thing that you can do and the most impactful is to tell them the results. Commit to telling them results of what their money did. And you're hearing a theme. Sorry if I'm beating on it, but it's really important. And then the final part about this is an invitation to join you, to come on this mission to help us solve together. We're going to solve this problem. And they're going to contribute money. They might contribute advocacy. They might contribute referrals. They might give you non-monetary gifts to support it. All of those are good results coming out of your crowdfunding story. But in order to retain them, and I harp on this, you must honor the promise to tell them what happened. And we recommend an 80-20 rule. 80% of the time, your communications with a donor should be about sharing impact, not asking. 20% of the time, or 20% of your content can be about asking for help. But in that asking for help, it's asking for advocacy, not necessarily just asking for a new gift. If you think of that 20%, only maybe 20% of that time should be about asking for a gift. It's important to ask, but if you minimize the number of times you're asking, they're more receptive to hearing your messages all the way along. Okay, we're going to jump into the case studies now. So these case studies are other organizations just like yours, we hope. There's only 6 of them here. Some of them are a little different, so you're going to have hopefully have some fun with it. That we're going to walk through and show you the campaign pages and going to call out what we saw them doing well on those pages that kind of fits into the short-term, long-term strategy, the small amount donations and that. And we're also going to show you some that have done this earlier on, and now this is how they've managed. This is the long-term strategy coming into play. So you might have to trust us a little bit. The short-term parts worked because we don't always show all of that. But what we are showing you is when they've done that over a period of time, this is what it looks like. So now we're going to go into that wild phase of the demo where you go, I'm not sure what's going to happen next, but because we're going to flip our screen and try and get into these demos. Okay. Hey, it worked. Okay, so the first one we want to talk about is spring into action. And spring into action, oops, come back. Okay. They did a great summer theme campaign. It's about taking adult children and making sure they have the resources available to have a really fun summer. They have a very kind of modest goal in what they're trying to raise. They're trying to raise $7,000. For some folks, that's a lot. For some folks, that's just a little. But the key thing about their crowdfunding campaign, and this is live, so we're going to be able to scroll this here, is you can see they've already exceeded their goal. It only took them about 2 weeks to actually do it, about 14 days to do it. And the reason I wanted to highlight this one is that they did a really good job of telling their crowdfunding success story. Remember how we said there should be a nod? At Camelot Center, we believe every adult with developmental disability deserves to access meaningful and enriching experiences. A lot of people go, yep, that's a good idea. And then they start talking about what they do with their program. And, that's where you come in. They're introducing the donor as the hero of the story. By donating, this is what it's going to cause. And if you donate today, everyone's summer will be filled. So you're painting a picture of the future, what the great result looks like. and then some bylines there. Let's make the summer unforgettable together. So this kind of campaign is very quick and easy to create. Doesn't take very long at all. And and when we're saying it doesn't take very long at all, this is a morning's worth of work. And one of the things you can do is you can work with our strategists. If you're looking to do this for the first time or frequently for the nth time, work with a strategist on what to say. So Shannon is here with us. Shannon's our VP of Client Success. And Shannon, can you just describe what it's like to work with a strategist with a group like this that kind of follows through?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've worked with Camelot several times, and I find every time we talk, we sort of build on the story, and it's a great interaction. This campaign this time has like a clear purpose and a community focused story. It was like the approach that helped really shine with the right structure and messaging. I found that we were able to highlight the impact, get the nod, guide the donors through a simple and compelling donation experience. And we're able to leverage supporter networks through the shareable content, talked about how to do the work with marketing and being able to share out the campaign. And we worked with the 7 steps, and it sort of was easy then to break down what the story is. I find working with me, we're able to talk about what is the goal, what is it we're raising the funds for, and sometimes it's not always clear. But as we're talking, we can sort of break down what is the key, start with the problem, the solution, and how, whether it's wishes, whether you're doing a peer-to-peer event, whether you're doing a simple donation form, but you're breaking down exactly what's going to make the biggest impact with your organization. And again, people want logic for the brain, so that's where wishes come in, and they want the heart for the story to feel compelled to want to talk about and share. And
And
I
Shannon, we're going to show some wishes in one of the next campaigns.
Perfect.
That's a really good point. And what we're showing on the screen here is an automatically generated social media shareable milestone message that is done when the campaign achieved a goal. This is a small campaign, so there was only a limited number of automatic things that were generated. But the point is that the user doesn't have to do a lot more. So, just a really quick comment, Shannon, how much time do you think you spent with these guys?
I would say this last time we had a quick couple emails back and forth. The very first time I talked with them, it was maybe 45 minutes. We just talked about all their goals, and then we'll do a refresher every once in a while just to sort of reassess. And sometimes it's just a matter of like putting the story down, and then they'll send it to me and I'll do some suggestions about what could maybe make it simpler. Because Daryl's right, people don't read, they don't want to scroll too long, they want people to get to the point, otherwise you've lost them. And so you need to have certain words, certain ways to really make it like draw people in like right away.
Yeah. And so I think that kind of the summary, where I'd love people to hear a little bit about this. This doesn't have to be a huge time commitment. If you're looking to try these types of campaigns at this point, it doesn't, take a big long planning cycle to get it done. And the other thing that I wanted to highlight on this one is the effective fee that they paid. They've got a PayPal nonprofit account, so they got their account verified with PayPal. Their total cost of fundraising, including payment processing, to use this platform and to create the story to get Shannon's help was 1.8%. So, I mean, how economical can that be? Okay, let's take a look at another one. Say oui to Paris. So this was a campaign from Rowing Canada. Now, Rowing Canada has worked with us for a number of years. Their first campaign started off very small. They were like $10,000 to $15,000. They were talking about supporting their athletes, and they followed these techniques over time to build a crowd. So over the course of the 3 years, they were acquiring small value donors, and because their target audience of competitive rowers all their money into training. They're not putting money into helping other things. And so they had to reach to the community around those rowers, around those athletes to help fund these things. And so their campaign is really kind of cute because they did something. They focused on what, instead of saying, look, we're going to Paris, we need all this money to do all these different things, they picked a very discreet thing to fund. And they said, buy our athletes breakfast. And that's all they did. They talked about it in multiple ways. We're going to scroll their campaign down here. They show little graphics that they created. You know, what was the result? 7,200 breakfasts were sponsored. And then they had some testimonials and examples from their athletes about what was going on. And they were really talking about the impact. They set up their campaigns to have either a recurring donation component, asking for a different amount, $17 a month, or they are going for larger amounts, and we're getting some folks to do it. My personal opinion, they probably were a little large. They could have had another lower level to get people involved here, but it worked out because they ended up overshooting their goal of 100,000 by a fair bit, 117%. And this was a concerted long-term strategy to start with short-term donors and grow them into a crowd that can really support them. So, I mean, you know, it was explicit and implicit in what they did. They were really just going, how do we grow our fundraising? And we were helping them with that. Okay. If we give you another example, because I got to keep this moving. So supporting women in recovery. The thing that I really like about this campaign is, now this was for earlier in the year, they used the media gallery feature of the platform to show images and text in these images that explain the impact of of their work. And they really made it easy to see the kind of people that they were helping. These are probably all stock photos, so they're not violating anyone's privacy. But by doing this, they're making it a lot easier to visualize the kind of impact. And it seems to be on theme for what they were doing. But the part that's really interesting is, compared to other types of platforms, CharityVillage's platform has wishes, perks, tickets, and other things like that. But this is where you can show up a wish that helps the donor understand what they're going to do. So if they give $50, it grants cab fare for a client to get to an appointment, or they get a coffee break, or they put some maintenance in, or they fund the groceries for a day, or they counsel a woman for a month. And they let the donors, kind of in a shopping cart metaphor, figure out how much they want to give and how many of these they want to do. They could grant 4 cab rides to somebody. So there's an automatic multiplier effect that comes into play. And I thought they did a really good job of picking their their imagery to help somebody understand what happens. And so we'll just keep going on that. But, you know, media gallery and wishes really make the connection between the clients and the donor's impact. Okay. Mission Ecuador. So Mission Ecuador is a church group that was putting on a trip down to Ecuador. A number of people are going to go. They're going to do a kind of missionary work along the time there, and they wanted to fund that project. They used a feature on the platform called micro projects, and this was where they gave each of the participants that's going down a sub campaign. So this is structured as you get a main campaign. That's the overall focus of the story, and that's what you're seeing here. And then you have a sub campaign for each of the participants that ties in automatically. Sounds like a lot of work, but actually the platform makes it really simple to make something like this happen. And so if we get over and show their campaign here, if we take a look, there's a leaderboard here, and the leaderboard shows all the different individuals that have contributed and how much they've raised. So that it's a bit of a making sure that there's some accountability, that everyone's done their job raising. But if we take a look at, I think it's Anna's campaign or one of the others here, this is Anna's version of the page in a micro project. It's kind of like a peer-to-peer event, but there's no walk, ride, or run that goes with it. And the important point is that Anna's story is in here about why she wants to go and what it means to her. So she's communicating, because she's sharing out to her friends and family on social media, she's communicating why this is important to her. Any of the funds that come through this are automatically rolled up into that main campaign, And there's even some features on the platform that if she did social media sharing or added photos or things like that, they could automatically populate the main campaign. It may sound overly complex, but what it does is it means that somebody visiting the main sees all the different people that are involved. And in seeing the people that are involved, it's much easier to feel like they're making a difference. Okay, gonna keep rolling here because we're getting close to the end. Hike for Hospice. This is a great success story from what they've done with working with this program over time. So they started off about 5 years ago. In their first campaign, they tried to raise, their goal was to raise $15,000, and they actually raised, surprised themselves, and they raised $32,000. And then they kept at this event over the last few years. They've kind of tuned the way they run it. They've tuned the way they asked for it. And their most recent implementation of it, they've raised $84,000 on a $60,000 goal. That's a 260% increase in the amount that they've raised through one event over a course of 5 years. So they've grown this event, they've grown the community around it that supports it, and using a peer-to-peer fundraising model, which is built into the platform and free to use. I'm not harping on that too often. So we take a look at Hike for Hospice. And the thing that I really, really like about what they did, and I think that I know that they've worked with Shannon on coaching, but their updates are awesome. Now, when they publish an update, you go into the campaign page and you make basically what's a blog post on the campaign, and it's automatically distributed by email to those people that have signed up, either as a supporter or a team member or a donor, and whether or not they've unsubscribed. So if they don't want to hear this kind of information anymore, the platform manages all of that for you. So you don't have to worry about your segmentation of your lists if you've got multiple projects going on. You just update the community around this, and now that update message goes out. So they did a fantastic job of saying thank you at the end. They finished their campaign. This went out to all donors, all participants, and they really made it clear with some nice graphics, probably done it with Canva or something like that, on what happened that they hit their goal. But it wasn't the only update they did. They used an update along the way to tell their hikers details about the event. And that was available for everyone to read, but it was a great way to both make kind of public and private communications at the same time. And then as we get, even warning them what the weather was going to be like. And then they had some maps of their route and things like that. So the summary here is they made very effective use of updates to communicate to their crowd. And you can see the long-term result of doing this kind of program. All right. Last one. How many people think that raising money for your project is really hard? And if it is, then take a look at this one. Imagine that you had to tell a group of people that you were going to recover a crashed bomber from the floor of the ocean and resurrect it and make it fly again. And that's what Halifax 57 is doing. Excuse me, among many other projects. And we highlight them because this is a very long-term running project, but the point is you can use your campaign pages to tell the story of a project, a long-running project. They use the media gallery to show people kind of the results of the work that they're doing every step of the way and documenting it. They used rewards to incentivize the donor, and we're going to show you all this in a sec, and they use updates like nobody I've ever seen before in terms of effectiveness. They were massive with it. So if we take a look at their campaign, we talk about the media gallery here. They've posted 585 photos about all the different work that they've done over time to resurrect these things off the bottom of the ocean. And just the life that goes on while they're at it. Like what the divers are like, who the people are like. This wasn't all done all at once. This was done very organically over the course of the campaign. By the way, they've upped their goals a couple of times. They started off with, I think it was a $100,000 goal, and now it's up to 200 and some, because they're getting traction with their crowd. Now, remember I mentioned they used wishes. You saw in one, or sorry, we used rewards. In the other campaign that we had for the women's care, they showed the wishes you could grant a wish. Sometimes you may want to offer something for sale, swag back to the customers. So they offered patches and maintenance manual, and other things like that about the bomber. And then in their campaign story here, they're really showing the progress that they're making. And when I say they did their updates better than anyone, over the course of this few years, they've posted 245 updates. And these updates go out by email. They include photos and sometimes videos of the current state of what they're doing with their project. And when they post these updates, they get more donations. So it's just a way to keep this crowd updated on what's going on. Great way to use the features of the platform. Again, they did all of that for free. Okay. So let's do a quick summary. Our short-term strategy, when we're in an economic downturn, but in general, we can apply this anytime, but it's really appropriate now, is that the acquisition strategy is about acquiring a small value donor, as many of them as you can, even some folks that don't even give you anything. We want them to join us in here because then we want to trust our ability to retain them and grow them over the long term into a much larger donor and an advocate so that it'll help you find new donors. If you get a donor who gives you $25 once a year, fantastic. If they give you $25 and they refer some friends and the aggregate amount that they referred is $10,000 or even $1,000, you'd look at them a whole lot differently as a donor. That's what a crowdfunding platform can help you do and help you track, help you see who's inspired those donors. That's a big difference than using just a donate button on your website. So we recommend you use the 7 steps to craft your crowdfunding story because, again, this is one of the biggest pain points folks have is they make their content too long and it gets kind of boring. It might sound important to you, but somebody reading it goes, I'm out. It's just not interesting enough. We're an entertainment industry in some ways, and we have to be entertaining the way we talk about it. We encourage you to kind of think through and use the steps of the crowdfunding flywheel to build a supportive community. And, a key thing about all this is act now. The summer slowdown is a good time to experiment. And you can do this with very, very low risk or no risk because the platform's free. Spend a couple hours at it and you can try something with your community. And then the reminder is to ask for the strategy help and receive expert guidance. And the reminder, buy Canadian. Charity Village, ConnectionPoint, we're all Canadian. We're world leading technologists and all this stuff. Okay. So if you need help immediately, type SOS into the Q&A box. I should have said not into the chat. And we'll connect you with a crowdfunding strategist ASAP. If you don't do that right away, you're still going to get follow-up communications. And there's some other ways you can access it. But I need to get on and give you a chance to ask some questions. So let's hear from you now.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So for the first question, for organizations that serve various groups, for instance, children, adults, and seniors, how can they make their elevator pitches short and simple?
Great question. And this is one of the really big advantages of having a crowdfunding platform is that you can have campaign pages on topics for each of those groups. So you don't have to combine the topic. In fact, we recommend you don't combine the topic. You can have an area on your campaign page when you say other things that we do, or check out what the other things that we do. And there's the ability to have extra tabs, structures, and things like that to communicate more information. But if you can focus on saying, here's what we do to help children, here's what we do to help adults, here's what we do to help seniors, we construct a message like that. And then you can embed little bits of this on your website if you want to kind of help tie the whole message together. There's another more advanced technique for using micro projects to do that, but I think it's outside the scope of what to talk about right now. But yeah, divide and conquer. The more, they call it niching to win in the business world. When you focus on just a specific message, you'll be way more effective with that. And it's not as much work as you might think to have the multiple messages out there.
Great, thank you. And then the next question, based on your experience, when an organization reaches or exceeds their crowdfunding goal, does this sometimes deter donors because the goal has been reached? How do you navigate celebrating the success while still communicating that the organization needs more donations?
Fantastic question and a very common question in terms of the goal is not a limit. Your campaign doesn't stop at the goal. And we recommend frequently that you pick a much smaller goal than you might actually be wanting, dreaming about, if you will. Because funny enough, hitting the goal, if you're, is a proof that you are, you're a good organization, basically. People are believing in you to give you that much money. When you hit that level of goal, if the value, the units of impact that we talked about, you kind of the amount that a donor makes a difference on incrementally, um, are clear, people will overfund your goal. And I think you saw some of them there, like they were, say we to Paris was 117% of goal. There's others that we've had in our crowdfunder world where we're dealing with kind of creative projects. It's not uncommon for them to hit 1,000% over their goal because they keep communicating. And that's the thing, is that the goal is just a stepping stone along the way. We've got long-term funding needs. The campaign is the current way we're getting some of those funding needs met, and you can keep going. Now, obviously, if the project has a very specific goal that you want to stop at, like, hey, we're buying a new van, or we're doing a new renovation, or we're trying to fund this specific program and this legal action or something like that, you can cap it. You can say, hey, stop when we hit the goal. But most of the time we find that it's okay and welcome to donors to, when you get there, acknowledge it and say, hey, now we've got a stretch goal. This is what we want to do next. Are you in? And people will frequently be in.
Great, thank you. And then we have a very specific question. So in your experience, how well does the crowdfunding flywheel and 7 steps of impact storytelling translate to other fundraising activities, for instance, grant writing?
Um, Great question. I believe that the short, succinct way of doing the storytelling would be a great intro to a grant write. But I mean, a grant, a lot of the time they're evaluating you, they're wanting to read what you've got. They're looking for a lot more information. So if you can frame what you do really well with that crowdfunding story and then provide them the detail, my expectation, I don't have any direct experience to know from that, that you would get better results.
Perfect. Thank you very much for presenting such an informative webinar. Do you happen to have any final comments before we sign off today?
I think a few thoughts. One, elbows up. I think that as a society, we're resilient and there's a lot we can do here to really help each other in what we do. And, kind of along that theme, that's why we're here. That's why, you get coaching and help, very specific help if you need, on making your campaign operate, from Shannon and from me and from others. And from Charity Village, putting on this platform to make it easy to support the community in Canada with a free crowdfunding platform that has all the power you just saw and is really easy to use. So get started. Take a little bit of a risk and try something, especially in the doldrums of the summer here. And now give you great preparation for getting going in the fall and the things that you might do to amp up your end of year giving.
Great. Thank you very much, Daryl and Shannon. I just
You're
wanted to remind
welcome.
it. Oh, sorry, you go, Shannon.
Oh, no, you're welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And then we have the contact information on the screen as well. Charlie has also populated that in the chat. We will also be sharing that as part of our follow-up resources. So feel free, we'll just send that directly to you via email so you don't have to copy and paste that here today. And I just want to remind everyone that you will receive a follow-up email tomorrow that I just mentioned with a link to the webinar recording. Please feel free to share this link with your colleagues. The email will also include a survey link that you can fill out with your feedback on today's webinar. You should see a survey link pop up right here in Zoom following the session as well. On behalf of Charity Village, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you'll join us for our next free webinar, Streamlining Daily Operations. You can find more information on this and all of our upcoming webinars at charityvillage.com/webinars. Thanks again for joining us. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day.